Jimison won't be joining us tonight. I assume Gabriella's here. Good. Almost all of us here. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. The Resource Conservation Commission meeting for February 13th, 2023, time 6:31. Josh, do you mind being the timekeeper tonight?
Sure.
Thank you. Josh appointed timekeeper. Any public appearances out there?
No, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is approval of the draft minutes from the January 9, 2023 RC meeting. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Open for discussion.
I have two things on 4A. I'd like the second part of that. I guess it needs to be broken up into a sentence. So the second sentence, can you hear me okay? Okay, I'm getting a little feedback. Gabriella reported many residents have contacted alders to complain about excess salt on sidewalks. And that would be one sentence. And the next sentence would start with what the minutes say. Commissioners discussed the possibility, etc. Okay. And the next item is 4B, the action item, Diane to work with Ben to draft, etc.
Okay.
You got those?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll abstain from a voice vote on this one just because I wasn't in attendance for the meeting.
What was that, Josh?
I'll abstain from the voice vote on approval of these since I wasn't present for the meeting.
Okay. I mean, is there any more discussion on the meeting minutes? If not, take a motion all those in favor approve the meeting minutes with the changes as Diane suggested, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? All right, meeting minutes approved. Okay, item 4 on the agenda, new business. Director of Public Works introduction. So Ben, do you want to introduce Tim?
Yeah, is Tim on here?
Yep.
I am. Oh, yes, he is. So yeah, Tim just started a couple weeks ago in the new Director of Public Works position here. So yeah, I guess with that, I'll pass it off to Tim, and he can kind of introduce himself.
As Ben mentioned, my name's Tim Volker. This would be my 4th week now. I started on January 23rd. Was born and raised in Wisconsin, went to UW-Madison, received a biological systems engineering degree, which is a fancy word for agricultural engineering. My emphasis was in natural resource and environmental engineering. Upon graduation, I moved to Florida. So I've been down in Florida the last 17 years. I'm a registered and licensed professional engineer with the state of Florida, looking to obviously get my license up here in Wisconsin. So when I was in Florida, I worked for a company that did civil site planning or engineering for developers. We do the paving, grading, drainage, water, sewer for residential, commercial, industrial projects. And then in 2008, when the housing market crashed, the construction in that industry kind of came to a screeching halt. So I latched on with a company called Carollo Engineers. They're a nationwide company doing water, wastewater treatment plants. So worked for them for 5 years, and then the economy got better. Went to work for a city closer to home, city of Stewart, which was about 17,000 people. Started out as the city engineer, came on board was promoted to the assistant public works director, city engineer. Then last couple of years, I was their utilities and engineering director. So kind of came back home for family reasons and was fortunate enough to latch on with the city of Fitchburg.
That's great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm actually a Florida person. I grew up in Orlando, Kissimmee area, but we used to go to Stewart, Sebastian Inlet all
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You must, if you work Corolla, you must know Liz Fujikawa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was in the same office as Liz.
Yeah, I worked with her in Chicago.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you for sharing your background and everything. We look forward to working with you.
Yeah. I'm happy to be on board and look forward to working with everyone.
Do you want to have any questions for Tim?
Do we want to take a couple minutes and introduce ourselves?
Sure, yeah. Go ahead, Diane.
Oh, I'm Diane Streck. I guess you can read that. I've been with RCC probably since 2003, I think. I was chair for a couple of terms. I was interested in art. I got interested because I saw a lot of contractors not recycling their waste, and it's really blown from there. By training, I'm a CPA.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Will.
Hi, so I'm Will Bussey, and I've lived in Fitchburg for about 7 years now, and I'm been on the RCC for just over 1 year. And yeah, just wanted to get involved just because it's a issue I care about personally, and looking to just learn a lot. For my day job, I'm a physical therapist, and so I feel like I don't have a lot of the background of some of the other members in the RCC, but have learned a lot so far and enjoy it. So
Nice to meet you, Bill.
good to meet you, Tim. Mm-hmm.
Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Workentine, and I have been with the RCC since I think 2012. In my day job, I work for the Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association as the youth education director, and work with the state of Wisconsin and all of the students on various conservation programs that we host, including 2 conservation camps and some other programs. And I got interested when my son was in kindergarten. And one of the great things about the RCC is if you have a passion or something you're very interested in, it's a great committee to bring the issue to the committee to work on. And so we started a milk carton recycling program when my son was in 1st grade, and at the largest elementary school in Madison, Leopold. And that program is still going to this day. And my son is going into freshman in high school next year. So that was kind of one of my pet projects and passions, as well as recycling and plastic all kinds of recycling, kind of like Diane. So this is a great committee, great people, and we do a lot of great work.
Great.
So welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Just to blow Kim's horn a little bit, not only is Leopold still recycling milk cartons, but it's being expanded to all Madison schools.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Josh?
Hi there, I'm Josh Ackert. I've been on the RCC for coming up on 2 years. Got involved, a few years after moving to Fitchburg, looking to get more active in the, resource and environmental space. Had an environmental studies minor when I went to UW-Madison, but have typically focused on, other aspects of science, primarily neuroscience, stem cell research. I'm now an oncology educator and over at Exact Sciences. So that's where I sit kind of in my day job, but really appreciate the opportunity offered by this council to, locally be active in these spaces, as well as learn a lot more from people who have been doing this a lot longer and talking about these topics. And really appreciate the diversity of, things we get to talk about here.
Nice to meet you.
Gabriella?
Hi, Tim. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
Yeah, we met at Transition and Transit Committee last week, but I didn't actually get a chance to introduce myself. So Gabriella Gerhardt, I'm the alder for District 2 in my third year as an alder, and also my third year on RCC. My original background is in geology, a bachelor's of science in geology. I did some graduate work here at UW and made a big shift. I work in nonprofit fundraising now, but in terms of the priorities, working with the city of Fitchburg, climate change preparation, sustainability, all of those types of issues that the RCC focuses on are a passion of mine, and a lot of the amendments and legislation that I work on and I bring forward is really in that space. So RCC has been a great committee, and really love working with all these great people.
Good to see you again.
Phil, I'm assuming you two probably have met.
We have, yep. So sustainability specialist, have been taking minutes for the RCC and sitting in on meetings since I started here. Been with the city for about 3.5 years now. Not a native Wisconsinite. I grew up in St. Louis, but have been here for about a dozen years in a variety of capacities, energy efficiency, and did graduate school at UW, and now Fitchburg.
Thanks, Phil. And Tim, I'm Ron French. I'm the chairman of the RCC. And like you, I come from a engineering consulting background. I worked with CDM Smith for 23 years, and that's how I got to know Liz when we worked at the same company. I'm an aquatic ecologist, have a lot of background in doing environmental type work. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join the RCC. I wanted to be able to leverage my environmental expertise to help the city with any environmental issues, and it's been over the last 3 years. It's been a great experience. Everybody, all the commission members are great, and it's been a pleasure working with them. And I think I speak for all of them. We're going to really look forward to working with you and your staff.
Very good. Nice to meet you, Ron.
Thank you. Any other questions for Tim? So I guess, Tim, you're welcome to hang on if you want, or I guess you can leave.
Absolutely. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda, item 4B is a resolution R-02-23 authorizing Dane County Services for stormwater permit review, control inspection in 2023. Is there a motion to approve the support of the adoption of this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Up for discussion?
I have a question. Ben, how much did we pay Dane County last year? Do you know?
I'd have to look at the totals to get an exact figure, but I believe it was roughly 30,000, of which about half gets reimbursed back by the developers. So, when their staff is out doing the erosion control inspections for these private developments, they get billed back those costs, and it's about half what the city pays and what ends up being reimbursed by the developers. But I believe it was in that 30,000 range.
Okay, thanks.
Ben, do you know what the breakdown is in terms of the cost, being the labor versus expenses? Like how many hours are we getting out of this from the county versus expenses?
Yeah, so it's really almost all labor.
Okay.
They break out, they send us their bills, and it's I don't really ever see any materials on there. It's
okay, no fuel expenses or mileage or things like that.
Pretty much strictly their time for going out on site and then doing plan reviews.
Okay, I noticed on page 17 that the date is wrong on there. It lists January 2022. I think that should be 2023. On page 17.
Yeah. Good catch.
All right. Well, we can get that rectified.
So I assume at some point, we're also gonna take Bill's name off and put Tim's.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess one question I have, maybe it's for you, Diane. I noticed in there that there's approvals and signatures. Are we, when we go through these motions, are we supporting the adoption or approving, making an approving? Since we're not a signatory.
Actually, I think that might be a better question for Gabriella. I think that we're approving this resolution, but obviously we don't have the authority to make a contract. We're just approving the city to make the contract, but this looks like the contract's already done. Is that right? Oh no, this is just a copy. This is just a copy of the 2017. Yeah,
so that IGA, that intergovernmental agreement, it basically says that it goes to in perpetuity until it would be canceled. But because of the cost of it over 5,000, it just requires a resolution every year, from what I understand.
Yeah, this is Gabriella here. This is something that comes before council annually, and it's pretty typical. And yeah, I mean, they go through all the commissions just for feedback, but like all commissions, just advisor to the council. Although, I mean, if changes need to be made, like updates to the, date or to names, obviously that's something that staff can handle, but is outside of the realm of, that happens at the staff level before the contract goes through.
So we're not really approving this. We're just supporting the adoption of this resolution, correct?
Yes, I guess would be my answer to that question. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Any other discussion on this resolution? If not, let's go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor to support the adoption of this resolution, say aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed? So approved. Next on the agenda, new business, item 4C, resolution R22-23, adopting the 2023 update to the ARPA/TID closure investment plan. Is there a motion to support the adoption of this resolution?
So moved.
I second.
Up for discussion. Ben, you want to give us a little overview, or?
There's not too much more than I can add than what was just included in the referral sheet. This wasn't something that I really had much part in. Maybe Gabriella could expand.
Yeah, I can give some background. So we saw something like this similar to last year. The ARPA, as a reminder, is the American Rescue Plan Act. It's federal funds in response to the coronavirus pandemic that were lump sums given to cities that applied for it. I think it was about 3.2 million that we received. And then we also simultaneously last year also had a tax increment district closure that had money left over, which meant we got some of that money back into the city of Fitchburg coffers, both of which sums of money are great for one-time use projects to set us up for the future. So we created an investment plan last year around the same time to talk about what priorities we wanted to spend it on. Some of that money was spent last year. It was put into the CIP that year, and some of it was put into the budget, the 2023 budget at the end of last year for this current calendar year. But there is still more money that has yet to be spent. So this is an update to that plan. It is similar to, it includes all the things that we saw the last time, except for obviously some of the things have been done. Some of the things have been updated for costs. Some things are more expensive than they were before. Mm-hmm. And then also on top of that, we have a planned closure of another tax increment district this year, which will again have money left over, and there will be some additional funds coming into this kind of this lump sum of money that we can use for one-time use projects. So the idea behind this is to refer it out to all the committees, see if there's anything in the plan that's sort of missing that should be included. A lot of what we had discussed this last time, and I did submit quite a few amendments and during the process last year. And all those things are also included again. So, you can think about this less as like an official document and more as a wish list, just because the total amount of everything included in the plan is more than the total sum of money we have to spend. So it's really just a list of potential ideas of what we could spend it on, and to help be directive to staff in terms of pursuing different projects. So I guess that's all I'll say. That's the background of it. If you guys have taken a look at it, if there's anything that you think is missing from the plan, you can let me know, or discuss it here. There is an opportunity for me to put in an amendment to change it. And I could share that schedule here too. I can share that during either at the end of our discussion or during my council report.
Yeah, Gabrielle, I noticed that in the plan, it was like 10 million for the wish list versus 8-something million that we have. Who decides what gets cut out?
So that's a good question. It's a little bit at the discretion of the mayor and staff on a day-to-day basis. A lot of those, if we're spending the money that's non-budgeted in a calendar year, that has to go through council because it's usually above the $5,000 threshold. So there would be some council approval. Some things have been into the CIP. So things that are adopted into the CIP on that horizon are things that are more solid. But yeah, there's a lot of variability in terms of some of these are definitely more near-term, developed projects. Some of them are less well developed, but a lot of those decisions are going to be driven by the mayor and the staff.
Mm-hmm.
But anything that in this plan that is a priority, hopefully should be either added to the CIP on that 5-year horizon of near-term projects, or could be added to the budget. But there is a longer horizon on this. Like this money doesn't need to be spent in a calendar year. So just because it's not added in this year, it could be added to a future fiscal year budget if it's not appropriate for the capital improvement plan. So it's a long answer, but I hope that covers it.
So there's no time frame for the expenditures of this money then?
Some of it, yes. So the ARPA money does have a time period, I believe, needs to be spent by the end of 2024 or 2025, but we have every intention of spending that money. That's not going to be an issue. The TID money has no time horizon because it's basically city of taxpayer money that was put into coffers that was unspent. So it's our city money that we can do whatever we want with.
I think it was last year, we talked about the need or the desire to plant trees in certain neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been addressed somewhere in a budget, or is that an addition that we should put on in this for this money?
I can double check what the amount is. I was going to take a look at that before the deadline passed. But yeah, we did add more money for trees. That's an ongoing issue. It's something that the Tree Advisory Committee discusses, and I know we have Anna Healy here to talk in a little bit about the tree protection ordinance. But
specifically in those targeted neighborhoods that we discussed,
I don't know that there's an active plan to make that happen at the moment. So that's something that we should discuss.
Yeah, I can share my screen here. I don't know if you can see it. I thought there was something in here for the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a replacement for emerald ash borer removal.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
So
different.
that would not necessarily be an equity-based tree planting, which I thank you for raising that, Diane. I was going to ask about that as well. I was also going to ask.
Yeah, the tree.
Go ahead,
Is that what you're looking at, Diane, to update complete tree inventory?
No, I'm not talking about inventory. I'm talking about exactly what Josh was referring to, the equity tree planting.
Okay.
I think it's a great, I mean, we've discussed it a little bit in the past. I think that's a great example of an addition. So I can take a look at putting an amendment together to specifically call out a project like that. One of the challenges with trees in general that I've discovered is trees are not considered capital improvements. So the tree budget is an annual budget item rather than a long-term capital improvement plan. we can't have a CIP related to trees. It's kind of a subset of something in the parks, which makes it a challenge to look at those long-term time horizons. But I think it's a great idea. If any of you, Diane, Josh, if you want to send me some thoughts about your perspective on that, any sort of thoughts. I know I've had notes from before that we've talked about that, but I definitely can put together an amendment about specifically trees, specifically for neighborhoods to increase the equity of the tree canopy.
Can I just say one thing about that? I don't want to hijack the meeting, but
Oh, please.
so the one thing about that is there isn't a lot of public land in our neighborhoods that you would think of as needing this. So, for example, there may or may not be a terrace, or there may or may not be a park, a public place for us to plant the trees. So it may make sense to do some kind of like cost share or something with like a multi-family development person rather than adding it to the city budget, because even if we had money to plant trees in some of our neighborhoods, there's nowhere for us to plant them because we don't own any property there. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Most of our healthy neighborhoods, or our neighborhoods you would think of in terms of underserved or that would need equity, they're multifamily housing areas, and they don't necessarily have a terrace for planting trees or any parkland for planting trees. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we do try to plant as many trees as possible every year in our healthy neighborhoods. The big challenge is we don't have space to do it. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
Okay, that's a good point.
So,
Ann.
so would it work then to put a budget amendment in for a cost sharing equity tree planting?
I don't know. I mean, that's not some, I mean, I don't know why not, but that's not really something I could comment on.
I can look into it. I can talk to Misty. I don't want to make like a solid commitment in terms of including it, but I think it's an important discussion and something that we should continue talking about. But sometimes this is a good opportunity to bring ideas forward, because there is not, because it is somewhat of a wish list. So thanks for that, Anna. I can take a look at it, but if anyone wants to send me thoughts related to that, I'd be interested in taking that into account.
Josh, could you take the ball and run with that, please?
Yeah, I can follow up. Gabrielle, I'll follow up with you and figure out what would make the most sense, and then what we could maybe pitch in terms of facets of that initiative of, if the city's just supplying the tree and the owner would be responsible for placement or something like that, so it would remove us from liability. I think there's a couple of ways we could think about trying to structure that so that maybe we could get it lumped under something like capital improvement or like a community-based initiative or something, so that it kind of gets us into those realms. But yeah, I can definitely take some discussion on that. The other one I was going to ask about, and I guess this is just in general, information for this committee, but like, I know I've contacted the mayor before about this university city or partnership. It's cool to see that on there. That's another one that I thought would be really valuable with these one-time funds, because we'd spend them all up front with that partnership. It would last 3 years, and most communities have seen a huge return on that investment. And so I don't know if there's a way for us to emphasize ones that we feel like have a particularly strong, match with this one-time funds, but I would say that one provides quite a bit of opportunity for us.
That one I'll just say only because I know I'm familiar with that having come up in my first year or two, and I spoke with our previous planning director, Sonia Creasel, about that. When she was with the city of Monona, she said that I believe they partnered with UW and the university year. I do think they got a lot out of it, but her caution was that it does require a pretty large staff commitment, and so we would need to know that we've got the staff time available to partner with UW on this. With the sustainability plan coming up and B-cycle that we're trying to get off the ground, I probably don't have time in the next year or two myself. I don't want to commit any other staff members, but that would be the one potential drawback with university year is just, do we have the capacity when we need to get it up and going? I think it's a great opportunity. I agree. I've seen some really cool things about it, but it's just a question of staffing availability.
Yeah, and that's great context, Phil. I know that we can pitch 2 to 3 ideas, and so I think that can come into the nature of, who would have bandwidth, or, how would the mayor feel like they could shift priority or whatever based on a potential pairing or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Bill. Any other discussion on this resolution?
I could just share the calendar real quick for the
Okay.
budget process,
Sure.
if I can share my screen.
Yeah, we
real
got time.
quick. So hopefully you see this is the adopted schedule. The next thing is in red, the public hearing at the council meeting tomorrow night. And then followed by council proposed amendments are due on March 1st to the finance director. And then we'll go through a typical amendment process like we do for every process. So it's released to the public. There's a discussion, public hearing, and a vote along with the adoption of the plan, the amended plan.
Thanks, Gabriella. Any other discussion? If not, take a vote on support of adopting this resolution R-22-23. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? The resolution, adopting the resolution is approved. Next on the agenda, item 4D, is the tree protection ordinance presentation by Anna Healy from the Tree Advisory Committee. So Anna, you're up. And thank you for joining us tonight. I think you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah. Anna, do you want to go through the
Oh, hi, Linda.
hi presentation, or do you want me to start out?
I can do it. Why don't I share my screen so we can
Okay.
see if that's okay, I'll share my screen so we can see the slides.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Brewer. I know some of you. I'm on the Tree Advisory Committee. Okay.
Wow. Me.
If you can't, I have it up too. I can do it.
Okay. It's asking me to sign back into Zoom. Oh, come on. Ugh. Linda, why don't you share it? Because I'm not sure I've got the bandwidth to do it.
Okay. Now that I said that, it's okay. Here we go.
Ah, now it's not. Oh, come on.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, thanks, Linda. So yeah, thank you very much for having us to chat about this topic. It's something that we've been working on for several years now, and I'm hoping that this is the last year we're working on this because we get it accomplished. So I am Anna Healy. I'm the urban forester and naturalist here for the city of Fitchburg. That's my day job, and my all the time job is really caring about trees and tree preservation. So we're going to talk a little bit about one method that we have been working on to try and get more trees preserved here in the city of Fitchburg. Linda, are you able to maximize it so the screen is just the slides?
What are you seeing? You're seeing this? Okay.
If you can, it's no big deal. But we can go to the next slide.
Oh wait, maybe I can. I'm not sure. There it is. Oh. Yeah, I'm just not sure.
Okay, that's fine. We can go to the next slide. Okay. So the whole reason behind this, we didn't just make this up. This is something that's actually in the comprehensive plan. It's the comprehensive plan policy 1.3.6. Basically mandates tree advisory to develop a tree protection ordinance. And along with that, it's also something that, trees contribute, untold benefits to the ecosystem in terms of ecosystem services, wildlife habitats, stormwater retention, oxygen, all of those sorts of things, as well as social services. People feel a lot better when they're around trees. good for people's health and safety. And the trees we have already in the environment, it makes sense to preserve them as much as possible because they are already there. It's basically a free resource and will continue to contribute all of the current benefits for generations to come. And we're already doing something similar to this when land outside the urban service area is developed. When someone wants to, split off a housing unit, they have to give a map of the woodland cover, including any identification of any heritage trees and a way to protect those heritage trees when that development happens. This has been going on for, I believe, about 10 years. I think this was implemented in 2013 or so. And we haven't, to my knowledge, had any really big issues with this situation. When the plans come into Park Commission, they forward them to me. I review them. I chat with whomever's doing the development, and we figure out the best way to retain as many trees as possible, particularly heritage trees, which often outside the urban service area are Baroque trees, and kind of go from there. So I haven't heard of anything really being a problem with this. And so basically how we're hoping to get this done is we are adding some language to section 24.4, that's the preliminary plat requirements, to include a map of the existing desirable trees and a plan a tree protection plan to keep them in the environment during the development process. And then there's some definitions that need to go with that, and those are included in section 54.4, the necessary definitions that provide clarification as terms of what we're talking about, what's a desirable tree, what does tree protection mean, that kind of stuff. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, hopefully those got emailed to you or put in your packet as well, just so you have it. Okay. Yeah, and this is basically the it's a little hard to look at by itself, but within chapter 24, which is the land division ordinance, this is the change that we'd like to see, is the addition of this language, basically a map showing the location, size, and type of desirable tree. And desirable tree is defined in section 54, which we'll go over in a few minutes. And also any trees that are deemed, potentially worthy of preservation, we'd like to see a tree preservation plan, and it can't be, we won't knock it down. It actually has,
Right.
because that's typically what that means. So we also have some definitions in terms of what the tree preservation plan is. And the next slide will give a little bit more clarification to the definitions.
Yeah, I think what we found over and over again is that good intentions don't replace knowledge and expertise in how to protect trees. So I think
exactly. And it's a little bit more, I think, I don't want to say complicated, but there's just more to it to keep that tree in the environment long-term than people realize. So these are the definitions. Some of it's just industry standard, DBH, that's the typical definition of diameter at breast height. Desirable trees, we did list them all. So this is the list of desirable trees. We wanted to refer to a list that we could update or change more easily, but that was something that the legal folks thought was not such a great idea. So it's right there. So if you've got these tree species on the property, we'd like to know where they are and what condition they're in, and if they are candidates for potential preservation. And then the tree preservation plan would require all these things. And this isn't something we just made up. I mean, this comes from best management practices from the International Society of Arboriculture, and also from current spec books that exist also that are published by the ANSI, the American, what is ANSI? National Safety, I forget what it is, but it's an acronym basically for standards. So this is basically the industry standard of, if you're going to write a tree preservation plan, you have all these things in it. You consider all of these factors, and that's what we put in our definition. And so basically how this would be implemented is when a developer comes to Plan Commission with their preliminary plat. Of course, they do all their homework ahead of time. They bring all their submittals, and included now with their submittals would be the trees on their map with their submittals. I mean, currently they need to provide all the existing roads, existing sewer lines, existing buildings. It's pretty complete what they need to, it's pretty comprehensive what they need to submit. And this would also put the trees on that map. Just so everyone's got that information. Oh, by the way, there's a dozen bur oak trees here, or whatever the case may be. And if there's any of those trees that are going to be outside grading limits, within the parkland that's going to be dedicated, or things of that nature, we do want a tree preservation plan as well that would indicate they are serious about saving those trees.
Can I ask a question on this
Oh,
slide?
sure.
On the
Sure.
second bullet, wouldn't you want a tree preservation plan for all desirable trees rather than any trees to be saved? Doesn't that sort of underscore that they need to save all desirable trees?
Yeah, I guess what we're trying to communicate is, if it's a tree that's going to be lost to a road or to a building anyway, there's no sense going through the tree preservation plan. If it's a tree that's, outside grading limits, that's a good candidate for saving, that's what we want to see the plan for. We're going to still lose trees in this process. That's clear. But if there is a way we can work around some of our desirable trees, we'd like to do that. And we'd like to see it actually more than just in thought and in words. We'd like to see it actually in the planning process, if that makes sense.
So if they're planning to take down a heritage oak because they're going to put a road there, is that something that you would work with them to maybe change the route of the road?
I can try. I can try. I don't know that I would have a lot of success with that. But, and it's interesting. And even, for example, we're taking a lot of oak trees down on Lacey Road, that addition of Lacey Road. And the response was, well, sometimes you lose some trees. Well, and I think what you're trying to say is, if that's the attitude, sometimes you lose some trees, pretty soon you don't have any trees left, because you're always with that, well, we're only taking a dozen down here. Well, that's kind of how it goes. But, I couldn't stop those trees from coming down that will be coming down on Lacey Road.
Okay.
So
are there other things that, either in addition to this, that we could be pushing for to try and encourage the city to not take that stance quite as readily?
Well, Phil can address this. It's in the bike and ped plan that, there's supposed to be bike lanes on, every time we redo a road, we're supposed to be thinking about bike lanes, and often that means trees are coming down. It's how it goes. And there's nothing I can do about that.
But I'm hoping that we're hoping that this will start a cultural shift. So as we know that developers look at what the ordinance require initially, and that city staff begin working with developers, they begin working with developers right away. So by the time it gets to plan commission, rather than having trees always be least considered in development, the hope is that they'll be pushed towards the top.
Yeah.
And yes, one of the big motivators for me has been sitting in on community discussion when the upgrades for Fish Hatchery Road were happening. And I watched all these special interest groups come in, including the Bike Coalition. And by the time they all got their piece of the pie, there was just tiny, very reduced space for any trees at all, and a lot of them are lost. So so we're hoping it does expand, that practices with the city change.
But I think, Linda kind of nailed it. We need a culture shift, because we won an award for that. I think we won 2 awards for that Fish Hatchery Road project. And it's like, which is fine, but from a tree perspective, it wasn't that awesome. So, you have to kind of, there's a lot of factors here, and we do what we can. And Linda was on that. I believe you were on the landscaping subcommittee for that. I believe, Linda, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I was on it just as a member of the neighborhood association.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yes. And I was there for, the landscaping, the plans around that.
But
Anna, Linda, is there any mitigating measures for trees that are lost? That
No.
say if we lose a tree, you got to plant 2 more?
No, nothing.
Well, can't you include that in this tree as part of this tree preservation?
Not very easily. We tried that. Not very easily.
Well, and it felt like we were weighing a couple of things. It felt like developers, oftentimes it's less expensive just to let the tree go. Or the intentions may be good, but they haven't created a plan to protect the tree. So the solution maybe for a developer is, well, that's fine, I'm just going to plant a new one. And I think our goal with this is we want to protect what we have, because we can't always replace what we have. And it's much more difficult to establish new trees than it is to care for the ones that have been the healthy ones that have been there for 20, 40, or 200 years.
Well, exactly. And from a carbon perspective, the trees we have cost nothing from a carbon perspective. The trees we plant, it's pretty carbon intensive to grow trees. It really is. I mean, once we get them established, I mean, but it takes at least 15, if not 20 years for a tree to start producing more oxygen than kind of offsetting the carbon that it took to get that tree there to start with. So, and that's never really part of the discussion either. Whereas the trees that we have in the environment now, keeping them, you know, in terms of like, from a carbon perspective, you can't get any better than that. But
the
anyway.
city certainly has requirements with new development about what trees need to be planted, and so that is there. And your question's a really good one, and I think that was why the emphasis on the tree preservation, the emphasis on this was to preserve the trees that we have whenever possible. That replacing them with new trees is not it's not an equal exchange of value.
No. And we do have a tree ordinance, planting ordinance, where when land is developed, the developer needs to give the city $300 for every, basically every lot, or every, I think it's 40 feet or whatever it is, maybe it's 80 feet, whichever is greater. And then that money comes to the city, and then we use that to plant the trees in the neighborhood. So we definitely do have a pretty strong tree planting ordinance, which is awesome, but it doesn't really address losing trees in the process to start with.
Are there models elsewhere in the country to incentivize developers to retain as much as possible, or move a building so that you're retaining a slot of good tree? I mean, like, are there models for that anywhere else?
I don't know if there's necessarily like specific models, but that does happen elsewhere. We just don't really have a mechanism for that. And that's something else we pursued. And it's really tough, because what you get into is eminent domain issues, and you get into take issues. And so it gets pretty complicated pretty quickly. And that we weren't really able to deal with that level of sophistication at this time. This is really, I'm hoping, the first step of many that we move down towards preserving trees, because right now we've got nothing. So this is kind of hopefully the first step of many, and it would be nice if this was something that we could build on in the future and maybe move to something like that. But yeah, I mean, that happens elsewhere. I don't know that we are able to do that here at this moment.
But that's a great question, and there has been a lot of questions about how to incentivize this for developers. So, I mean, we have like parkland credits, and we have some flexibility. The park department has some flexibility with how that's used. So the hope is that some of that can be used, to save lots of trees or individual trees as incentives. And then we have looked at some other cities. Mequon has a really excellent tree preservation policy, and they don't even deal with parkland credits anymore. They deal with conservation lots. So it can be prairie, it can be woods, and individual trees. And I think, Anna, you found a city that had an exceptionally good policy as well.
Yeah, in Illinois, there's a couple of the suburbs around Chicago that really have some pretty strong tree protection. I think the big difference is they aren't developing. They're all developed out. All the lots are built. So they're trying to save what they have, which kind of takes a little bit of a different tone than when you're taking tracts of land and turning it into like Oak Savannah, which we've done, and taking it and making it into housing. So
and I think that was true for Mequon too. Most of their land's developed.
Yeah.
And I think we're feeling a great urgency because there is so much development happening in the city right now, and we'd like to save what trees we can.
I was going to say, one of the advantages I feel like to moving to this area for me was the presence of all these trees. And so the idea that, it'd be wonderful to get ahead of it and try to not be playing from behind, which I feel like those municipalities are doing, and incentivize it, right? Like, I mean, we looked at, when you talk about those park credits, is there an opportunity for a developer to get a better incentive if they were to delegate like lots, prairie or trees or whatever as kind of the park space within their development, so that they're kind of trying to work with us in advance on that?
I don't know if there's any necessary incentive. They present their plans to, basically Plan Commission and Park Commission, and then there's, there's feedback from those commissions at that time. I don't know if they necessarily have incentive. It seems to me, just looking at some of those presentations, they want to maximize profit. So it just seems like they maximize the buildable lots, and stuff they can't build on or isn't as desirable for building is what ends up being the parkland. So, or they just pay, they can pay, if they don't have enough, if they're deficient in the parkland from ordinance perspective, they can pay money to the fee in lieu of fund, and they often do that.
Have there been examples, Anna, of where we have been able to save, like
Yeah. So for example, in Swan Creek, there is a lot that was not built upon because there's a large black walnut tree there, and that's the Black Walnut Preserve, and it's probably a little bit smaller, maybe it's about the same size as a building lot, and that was part of the parkland dedication for that development. They wanted it, so we didn't have to take that tree down. That was saved. We tried to do some of this work in Terra Vesa. It sort of worked. But it's always a conversation, and it's always a discussion, and it's just, and there is opportunities to comment on it, but it's, I don't know how effective that always is. And a lot of times, we don't know this property, or at least personally, I don't always know this property. These are private parcels that come before Plan Commission to be developed, and you may or may not know that the trees are even there, which is why we want to get them on the map to start with. So when these discussions are happening, the people making the decisions may not even know what trees exist on the parcel, which is why we're taking the step.
Quick question, just was curious if there was any consideration of expanding this to, say, like CSMs over 5 acres or something, just kind of larger CSMs, or if the intent is really more of these larger plats.
Well, for now, we're going after the larger plats. I think that would be great. We'll see how much momentum we get. We tend to really try to address these things, in a proactive way. So, if we can get that traction, we'd love to. That would be great.
we started out with a lot bigger, much larger goal, including that. We started out with that, and there was a lot of reluctance to go as expansive as that initially. So if we can start with this, I'm hoping that we can build on it, and that gradually there will be a change in how we work with developers. And that's the feedback I've gotten from other cities, is that over time, developers, they get used to all of us get used to a certain way of doing business, and that's what's expected, and that's how things work out well. So we're looking at this as a start. And so city staff will be working with developers right from the beginning, include the tree preservation, knowing that they will have to be required to do that.
Linda, where did the pushback come from?
Well, I think they're working with developers. That seemed to be that was a big topic that came up. That there was a concern that recent goals have been around affordable housing, and that if this is seen as something that is more costly to a developer in money or time, that then that we will get pushback on them not being able to provide affordable housing, because now it's going to be more expensive for building.
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
I know. Yeah.
The one thing I have thrown out there, though, when that comes up, I'm like, well, taking trees down is not free. You don't have people volunteer to come cut your trees down either, or remove them. So, and we'll see a little bit of that. So it's like, there is hopefully maybe some smart ways to figure out some of this. And my attitude is, it's 2022. You'd think we would be able to figure some of these things out by now.
Right.
Yeah, I love that an anecdotal thing like that could come in and water down an entire policy because we can't figure out how to put affordable housing on the spots that don't have trees. That strikes me as just looking for a problem at that point. But understandable that I'm sure this committee has been up against that, and very appreciative that I agree that I think that this is a huge first step in at least getting awareness to how do we start to have these conversations? How do we inform the public to come in and have these conversations around the fact that, you know, if there's an opportunity to weigh in, if there's an opportunity to put some pressure on people to see this as a priority, I agree that I think this is a huge piece.
Yeah, and it's got to be done in the planning stage, because if the plans are already made and there's a tree in the way, it's really difficult to save it at that point. By the time people figure out what's going on, it's too late. So that's why we need to get the trees in the planning process. So,
Right.
all right.
So I don't know if we want to talk about this at all. But
Well, we've been doing our homework. Like we
I know.
really have been. We started in March of 2021, and Gabriella was on the tree advisory at that point, and she kind of can maybe, vouch for us that we really have been meeting with a lot of different individuals, city staff. Particularly, we've been meeting with different committees like yourselves and going through this whole process for really, almost 2 years now, and really trying to get the best starting point that we can, which is kind of that's how we got to where we are. And one meeting that isn't on here, we just met with Valerie again. Linda and Craig Rapp from Tree Advisory met with Valerie, the city attorney, again. Was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or something?
It was February 23rd. We met with her.
February 23rd. Yeah.
That was really helpful.
Yeah.
At that point, it was helpful.
And our
and then-
meeting.
I'm sorry, I just want to say the feedback that we've gotten from the Plan Commission and the Park Commission have been very positive. And they, Josh, have expressed that same feeling that it's time we address this, and this is a start. And they seemed very appreciative of that and supportive, and had some great ideas and questions as well.
Absolutely. And the draft that you're seeing now their changes have been incorporated. Both Park and Plan Commission had some changes for us, and we've incorporated those into the draft that you're seeing. So
Just one other thing before you continue on. I'm delighted to see this finally moving forward. I talked to Anna's predecessor about this. Oh my gosh, it's got to be 15 years ago, and gathered all sorts of information. And in spite of his best efforts, it went nowhere. So thank you for persevering.
yes, and I tell you, I appreciate that, Diane, because it's been a lot of just dogged pursuing this, like not giving up, not necessarily not taking no for an answer, but just be like, okay, we hear you. We're moving on. We're, figuring this out, and just continuing to work on it and get what we can get accomplished. Because I think once we get started, I think the momentum will happen. So I appreciate that comment, because you're right. This has been something that's been a long time in coming, and there's been a lot of people who have wanted to see this happen, and it's just taken a lot of gumption to get us here. So at any rate, and there's been a lot of, I don't want to say, there's just been a lot of questions about, when is this going to get triggered? The only time this will get triggered is when section 24.4 happens. So basically the preliminary plat process. So if you have a project that's ongoing right now, you're not going to have to, this is not retroactive. And if you have a project that that doesn't go through the platting process, you're not going to be affected by this. We would hope that you think about the trees, but there's not, right now, there's not a mechanism to encourage that to happen. And so basically, this would come before the Planning Commission. They'd have more information. And if they want input from, city staff, they can ask for it. We may change it so that the tree preservation plan gets referred directly to tree advisory. That's still in discussion. But so basically it's more information so we can make better decisions. I mean, that's basically what this is, providing Plan Commission and all the other committees that the plats are referred to. It's giving them more information. And just for example, we had a recent plat come through Plan Commission, and on the parkland, it said, they're going to clear cut the parkland. And I was like, well, can we figure out what trees are there before we just agree to have it clear cut? And, and we asked the developer, and they're like, well, it's all softwood. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, what does softwood mean to you? Like, I'm not really sure what they were trying to get with that. I think it's just, so anyway, right, exactly. It's just like, at any rate. So we'll see. We're just by raising this awareness, I think there's more people asking questions, which is good, but it would be good to get the trees on the plans. And just for an example, this is something that I think a lot of people, this just came to mind recently. This is Wilshire. This is right by McKee Farms Park. This is that area that's off of Wilshire and
Oh,
Chapel Valley.
thank you, Chapel Valley. Thank you, Chapel Valley. That's now, I believe it's called. It's a senior apartment complex. I believe it's called. It's a
The courtyard.
Yes, it's a hotel chain name. So I always get a little confused. It's a
Yeah, so
courtyard.
the park, yeah, the park is over here and yeah,
Right.
here's the pond and the
Yes.
walkway.
Yes.
used to be-
So this is what it looked like pre-development. And this again it's right exactly adjacent to a park. And you can see, you know, there's a fair number of trees on there. The tree that caught my attention, if we scroll down, was a tree. It's right in the corner here.
Yep.
It's this oak tree. So it was right in the corner of the property. When you look at it, you're not even really sure, is it on the parkland? Is it in the private land? It's a little hard to tell because it's right on the line. And this is, you know, a 200+ year old oak tree. And you'd think, well, wow, you know, this is right on the line. The grading has been done. So it's pretty much outside the grading limits. And, you know, potentially this is a tree that we could potentially think about saving. But this was July of 2022. And then by September,
it was
this is what
down.
that tree looked like. So, it came down for a path. And which, you know, is how it goes. I don't know if everyone, if this ordinance would have saved this tree or not, but at least there would have been a discussion. Hey, you know, we have this heritage oak tree. It's been here longer than the city of Fitchburg. It's, you know, it will be here for, you know, a couple hundred more years if we don't knock it over. And it got knocked over. So
wouldn't the people walking on that path, we live right in this neighborhood and I drive past that stump every day, which drives me just crazy. Sorry.
Me too.
Wouldn't the people in that neighborhood like to sit under a 200-year-old oak and have their path go around it? Like this is the type of stuff that kills me, but yeah,
I
sorry.
think it's a construction path, not a walking path.
yeah.
I think there is a walking path there, around.
They've now paved it,
Have
I
one.
think, as a walking path behind the complex. Yeah, it looks
Oh.
pretty permanent to me, so.
Oh, okay.
Right, and that was confusing to me, why you would even want a walking path there when you have one that goes right through the middle to connect both sides. And that was really confusing why that was necessary. Of course, it's not my project, not my land. But I walked by there too, and even before this went, there were a lot of evergreens that's along that path. That path was a recreational path. I mean, that's the city owns that. And I felt like I was kicked in the stomach. I didn't. Anyway, so yeah, I don't understand the necessity of that, because it seems to me that in situations like this, that leaving trees actually increases the value of their property.
Yep.
That decreases it.
Yeah.
And that's what's
Lowers their
so
cooling costs, does all kinds of things that are just, that I just don't feel like there's enough, this incredibly short-sighted idea of the ease of construction or whatever you want to call it, when in the long run, there's all types of long-term benefits that come with this, I think is another piece that's missing from a lot of these planning discussions.
Well, and to grub out a tree this big is not an easy thing either. I mean, this wasn't free. I don't know what this cost the developer, but it wasn't nothing. So, you know, you have to kind of consider that too. The cost of removal can be, you know, quite significant as well.
right. And I think, that's why the ordinance is here. These things are a huge loss to our community.
And I will say we can't replace these. You know, we're definitely mining oak trees in the city of Fitchburg. We don't really have a lot of oak regeneration. Our parks are full of, you know, we try, but they're full of basically invasive shrubs that preclude anything, especially oak trees, from regenerating. And so when we take these trees down, there really is no replacement for them. And people say, well, you know, the developer could plant more trees. They could, but we can't replace this. And we can't replace the benefits it would give us for the next, you know, and this tree would be in the environment for a couple hundred more years, if we just let it be. So at any rate, that's part of the reason why we're really hoping to get some traction with this, is to raise awareness about these kinds of things. At any rate. So I think, isn't that our last slide, Linda, or do we have more?
That's it. That's our last.
Okay. So we really thank you for your attention. We really thank you for your passion towards trees. And
I have, before you wrap up, I have two questions.
Sure.
If you look at, I don't know what document this is that was in our packet, but it says your typing says page 2 of 2. It's page 27 in our packet. I don't understand number 4. I don't understand how number 5 isn't already addressed in number 4. Location of all desirable trees on all individual lots. Number 4 says size, species, and location of all desirable trees located within the area to be developed. Aren't they, is that redundant?
It might be a little bit.
And my other question is, oh shoot, I just saw that. Oh, number 7, identification of all desirable trees on the plan proposed to be removed. I would suggest moving that proposed over to proposed to be removed, because you're actually reviewing this and giving the okay about the removal, right? They're proposing to.
I would hope.
Yeah, I would just suggest that you change that, move that word proposed over
Okay.
a couple words.
To make it stronger.
I think it looks really nice. Thank you for all your work.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And Craig, who can't be here tonight, he really was very instrumental in just being a very calm, persistent voice in making this happen, which is great. And he's been a great advocate for trees, and we're really lucky to have him on the committee.
What's Craig's last name?
Craig Rapp.
Oh, thanks.
And I just wanted to say, thanks so much for it's good to see the progress that's happened. I was really sad to no longer be on the tree committee this year.
I know.
It kind of broke my heart, but I can't be on every committee, I guess. But you, Linda and Anna and Greg have done so much work on this, and it's been really, really wonderful to see the progress and also see the support generated over time. And, in my last 3 years, we've talked about trees and forestry so much at council. They probably every time I say trees, I feel like everybody's like, I've heard this a million times, but I think that's like part of the culture shift, right? Is like you continually talking about the same things over and over again and over and over and again. And then it becomes, people think of it as a default.
And
right?
it's their
Like,
idea next time, and that's what makes it work. Right?
Yeah. And so I think we're getting closer to that point where things like the importance of trees, the importance of sustainability, the importance of climate change, those are becoming more intuitive defaults in our conversation rather than something that one person has to constantly bring up. It's like pre-addressed, it's from the outset. So having this ordinance is obviously like really essential, and because the Plan Commission is so powerful, and some of those things that they do not even come back up before council. So the Plan Commission having their buy-in and making sure that there's rules in place so that they have to think about that. I mean, if it were a perfect world, I'd want like a tree advisory person on the Plan Commission, just for like context, because I just think it's such an important thing. It's not enough, but anyway, I'm excited about where we are, and I look forward to getting this passed, which I'm very hopeful, given all the legwork that's been done, is going to happen, and then working on expanding it from there, because the Tree Advisory Committee has been kind of on fire for the last few years. So yeah, thank you for all your
And we really appreciate all your support. It was really great to have you on the committee and all your energy and all your enthusiasm. And I think I've told you before, like people my age, we feel so beaten down, but like you're so young and youthful and have so much energy. It's great. So
I know we're running just a little bit over, but at an individual citizen level and as a committee like ours level, what would you recommend are some of the best ways that we can advocate for this type of work?
Tell the council you want to see it happen.
Is this going to come back as a resolution, or how is this going to be adopted? Yes?
Yep. So this will be on the referral agenda for the February 28th council meeting. So we are presenting to committee of the whole on February 22nd. And then we'll have, hopefully at that point, all the changes that we're going to have, and it will go, the wording will get finalized, and it will go to council for, as part of the referral agenda on the 28th of February. And from then it will get referred out and hopefully come back to council for vote either in March or April, depending on meeting schedules and agendas.
Good.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anna and Linda. Yeah, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for allowing us time on your agenda. I know you guys are really busy, and I appreciate your time and attention.
And we greatly appreciate the work you do. Tireless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your tireless work. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 4E, the 2024-2028 CIP project budget request. Ben and Phil, you want to update us on that?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of talk about just the CIP and some projects over the next few years. share my screen here. Okay, is everyone kind of seeing it?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so this is the 2023 to 2032 CIP. I just kind of highlighted the 4 years, kind of more near term. So I guess, one thing I kind of wanted to bring to the attention is that we may need to take another look at, what exactly how much funding was allocated to some of these, and do some shifting around. For example, I think, this Fitchburg Road stormwater improvements project. So that's the Goose Lake project. It should really coincide with the Fitchburg Road reconstruction project, just so those benefits from both projects can be realized. So I think what we would like to consider is moving that up, since we have a plan and kind of a route forward and a preferred alternative with what we want to do there, and then move out this Curry Court until we get a plan that we have some confidence in, that's going to work and not have any other kind of undesired effects. So that's kind of one thing. And then looking at this flooding north of Dunn's Marsh. So we're kind of in the process right now. AE2S is working on some modeling some alternatives. And again, that's another project where we'll see what happens when we get some further down the modeling stage and looking at some of these alternatives. But I don't believe that $250,000 is probably going to be enough for a project. It looks like there's going to be some pretty big capacity increases in storm sewer, potentially some custom concrete box structures to deal with the large quantity of water. So again, there's a project that might, very likely will need some additional funding in addition to that $235,000. I think the Lacey Seminole Regional Stormwater, this is basically the project that was proposed just southeast of the Sub-Zero kettle. So that's kind of at the intersection of Lacey and Seminole. If you're familiar, there's that big kettle of water. Now that's a project that I think is in a good location or a good spot, and it seems to have some appropriate funding, and potentially the same with this Human Drive storm sewer project. That seems like that could potentially be appropriately funded. So I think what we're going to want to spend a little bit of time on, or I will, is really kind of updating some of these estimates. Now we do have that $800,000 in community grant, the congressionally directed funding, which we'll be meeting with our EPA coordinator in a couple weeks here to kind of discuss more about that. But even with that $800,000, I see more projects here than what we may have money for without going out and finding some additional grants to secure the funding for these projects. So I just wanted to, put that out there before, the next meeting. I think we'll bring this back up. And it may be worth, again, kind of reevaluating some priorities if maybe priorities changed or you guys may have some different ideas than what's listed here with the rankings. But I think,
and it seems like there's a lot of projects in 2025. Does the city have enough staff of you guys to do all this work, manage this work?
well, I think we do, but it's going to have to be spread out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So to your point, I really see Fitchburg
It's a big
Road
project.
being the Fitchburg Road stormwater project being moved up really to this year, 2023, since we can act on it pretty much. I mean, we really have to get going because there's going to be a pretty heavy permitting lift for that project. So we'll be spending some money there this year, and then in 24, hopefully we could get construction. And maybe upsizing the Schumann Drive storm sewer is another one that could be pushed up to 24 as well. I think the Seminole Glen study that's ongoing is going to dictate maybe our decision with what exactly we need to do there. I think I said 800,000 seemed about right, but I'm assuming that it would be a relay from basically the walk into the park off of Schumann to the intersection of Schumann and Osmondson. If that's the case, I think that's appropriate. If we have to relay more, then it's probably going to end up going almost all the way to the Schumann Greenway. And at that point, that's just a street reconstruction project. I don't think we would really do that. So you got to take a look at these numbers here, see if this really makes sense. I know there's some projects here we can push forward because we have a plan that we can act on. And then some others we may just need to push back until we have a plan that we're confident on.
Ben,
so I just wanted to...
I agree with you on the Curry Court because we don't have a plan for Curry Court. So that obviously needs to be pushed back, but I'm a little disappointed that we can't do something about Lake Barney sooner.
So I just had an email out to Jeff Rao today, and I should be getting another update from him. He's the Public Works Director at Oregon. So maybe this week I'll get an update back from him that I can share with the group. But last I heard there were still some challenges with constructing the downstream conveyance channel through the Oregon Lerner Park. So we'll see what's going on with that, and I'll update the group when I hear. But
the other thing I'm wondering, some of these are included in the ARPA schedule, aren't they?
So there was ARPA funding used for the Sherrill Drive project.
Okay.
But I don't believe that any of these other stormwater projects were going to receive ARPA or the tip closure funding, other than the Sherrill Drive project.
Okay. Do you think they should? Is that something that we should ask Gabriella to add to that list?
Yeah, I think there could be a good project that could be added to that list. It might be a project that's not even on the CIP right now, but once the TMDL study gets done and we've got a better picture of our water quality in our urban service area, I think part of that study is going to be to indicate or to come up with some potential BMPs to further reduce TSS and phosphorus in the MS4. So, and that kind of translates or corresponds with the Yahara winds adaptive management. So because we're not meeting our waste load allocation, we pay money to Yahara winds to do other, best management practices focused more in agricultural areas. But, I think this TMDL plan is going to give us some projects that are going to hopefully help us meet that waste load out or meet the TMDL requirements. And we would, not be paying the adaptive management fees anymore. So I think there's going to be another project added to the CIP or at least one more. There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I see there's 566,000 for stormwater projects in the mayor's plan.
That would be the number that went to Cheryl Drive.
Okay.
Ben, do you want to follow up with me? Because I'm open to submitting an amendment. At least so, because at least so it opens up the possibility of using that funding. Just because it looks like right now, maybe that's not reflected in the plan.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you want to talk with me about that and talk about it, we can.
Yeah,
and
sure. I mean, you could throw any one of. I'd be happy if any one of these were thrown on there. That'd be fine. I mean, it's
okay. Got it. I'll take a look at that.
All right, thank you, Ben.
yes. Were there any other comments or things you felt were missing or thought should be a different priority as than what they're indicated as now?
So you're going to revise this and get back to us then?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So that's an action item that, Ben.
Thanks for working through this and thinking about it. I think you've got your hand on your thumb on the pulse of it. So I think we're in good shape.
Oh yeah, we'll get it all done.
All right, any more questions for Ben? If not, let's move on to 4F on the agenda. That's the update of the sustainability plan RFP. Phil?
We are just 7 minutes behind, just give people an update.
This can be a pretty brief update since I'm pretty sure we discussed the RFP last month. So we don't need a lot of detail here. The RFP was posted last month. We've had a number of agencies, companies download the plan, so we know we're going to have some bidders. I've got some questions in from a few bidders, and I'll be posting answers to those questions this week. And we're looking at getting all of the submissions in next month. Or hold on, let me check my timeline. This month, February 24th, I believe, is the date.
Yeah.
February 24th. Next month is when we'll go through interviews and I just went fuzzy all of a sudden for some reason. Next month we'll go through interviews and select a desired bidder and start the negotiations process and contracting. And we're looking to have the sustainability plan process begin in April. But yeah, right now we've got the RFP out there and we're just awaiting submissions from, once I post the Q&A responses this week, I'll be awaiting submissions from our bidders. And we've got a panel. It'll be myself and Ben and our community development planner, Brad, will be the panel that'll be looking through the submissions and going through scoring and deciding who we want to interview. So it's an exciting process. There's a lot of folks trying to fill up our dance card, and we'll see who we want to.
That's great.
Who we want to roll with. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for all your hard work and pulling this together. Looks good. Any other questions for Phil? If not, let's move on to agenda items. Item 5, old business. Meeting clean energy resolution goals. Phil, you're back up on the stage.
Sure. This one again can be kind of a high level overview. And if we wanted to go into more detail, we can do that in the next agenda item. Excuse me, the energy benchmarking and renewable analysis report. The short version is that we're doing great. So I guess not last year, in 2021, we passed our 25 by 25 goal from the clean energy resolution to have 25% of municipal electricity needs met through renewable energy by 2025. So we hit that in 2021 with, I can actually get you the exact figure. We were at 34.6%. I guess I should probably round off to, not to decimals, because there's always a little bit of fuzziness here in some of the numbers, but about 35% in 2021 is what we hit for electricity. Last year, I'm still waiting for numbers to come in, and I did send out a draft of my annual energy report a couple hours before this meeting to all of you. So if you did scan through that, you'll see that I mentioned that there's some data that's still outstanding. But right now, the number that I've got is 46% renewable for our electricity last year. It actually would be a little bit higher than that, but we have had some trouble with some of the inverters on our rooftop solar array on a couple buildings, and it's been a real struggle. We've got a company, Arch Electric, that is contracted to help us with technical support. Anytime we have any sort of communication error or other glitches, they'll come out and diagnose it for us, get everything up and running. Our inverters, this is just kind of an unhappy accident that when we did the 2017 project, we went with inverters that were built by Huawei, a Chinese company. For, I think, information security concerns, Huawei currently has restrictions on their ability to do business in the United States. So we had several inverters that went out. We had to get them replaced via warranty. That took a while, so we weren't generating electricity at all from portions of these rooftop arrays while we were waiting for those inverters. Now that we've got them back on, they're not actually, they're producing, but they're not communicating with our monitoring platform online, so I can't actually track how much is being generated. So we've got about a 6-month gap right now where I would say that we're probably producing 10 or 15% less solar than we would have over that period. And we're not also, I'm not able to calculate everything that was produced. So what I've got for 2022 is 46% renewable electricity. I can't tell you for sure if that's exactly correct. I'm not sure if I'll ever be 100% confident. I hope we end up getting all this backlogs data reported. If not, there's just always going to be an asterisk on 2022. The good news is, regardless of that, with this 46% renewable, so this was our 25 by 25 goal from the Clean Energy Resolution in 2019. The original 25 by 25 was part of our Energy Independent Communities Pledge that we signed on to from back in Governor Doyle's term in 2009. And one of the goals of the Energy Independent Communities program was for the state of Wisconsin by the year 2025 to have 25% of its electricity and vehicle fuels energy needs met by renewable energy. We have made some efficiency gains with our fleet, but we don't have any renewable energy powering any of our fleet vehicles yet. But still, we're at 25% of our electricity plus fleet fuel BTU energy needs met by renewables because we're at 46% solar for electricity. So we passed that 25 by 25 mark this year. It's if you combine the BTUs for electricity and fleet fuels, last year, the number I've got right now is 28% renewable for those two energy uses combined. So that's kind of exciting. It's a little bit more complicated to explain. So I like the Clean Energy Resolution one better. It's a lot cleaner, 25% electricity, but yeah.
I think we need some press on that.
We certainly could. Yep. I'll be honest, with everything else going on, press releases haven't been at the top of my list, but it's something I can think about.
Fact TV might be able to help put something out.
I like that even better.
I think last year or the year before, the Star had an article about it. I don't know how that came about, but
I think that was related to the impending O'Brien solar farm that they were talking about our clean energy commitments because of that.
Well, I think the Star should toot our horn.
I wouldn't say no to that. Yeah. But yeah, I can check in with Jeremy and see what he thinks, and yeah, at least get things started that way.
That's really good news. Thanks, Phil.
The other commitments, so 100% renewable electricity by 2030 is our goal. As I had mentioned, we're at 46% right now. We got 8 years to get to 100%, and that's going to be a combination of more renewable, looking into trying to see if we can get solar plus battery storage. That may take grant assistance because the costs for that are not really feasible yet for us to just buy it outright. More efficiency gains just to decrease our total energy burden to begin with, and really working with our utilities to try to get them to push their grids renewable. That's going to be that kind of final push, is the last bit that we're buying from the grid, we need that to be totally renewable from MG&E and Alliant. We also had the goals of 30% reduction in per capita fossil fuel usage by 2030. The figure that I've got right now, and this is of course just based on a population estimate for growth in Fitchburg since the 2020 census. But what I'm showing is that our per capita, now this is currently based on the city population, not Fitchburg staff. And that's been an ongoing discussion about which of those population figures to use. But using the Fitchburg population, our fossil fuel usage is down 17% per capita since 2018. So pretty significant reduction there. Again, a lot of that coming from the renewable electricity. But that puts us over halfway towards our 30% by 2030 goal.
Phil, with the move to more hybrid EV type vehicles, is that going to create a demand for more use for electrical demand?
Hybrids, no. EVs, yes. I think we're more likely to just plug EVs into existing outlets rather than getting solar panels installed. I think the cost for solar panels to charge EVs right now is probably not, what I've heard from some other fleet managers, not the best use of our money if we're really looking to green our fleet. We'd probably just plug them into the wall. So the nice thing about that is it will increase our electricity demand, but it's easier to green the electric grid than to green your gasoline.
Right.
So you're still, electrification of buildings is often talked about as a major step in getting us towards our climate goals. If you're getting away from gas furnaces and gas water heaters going to electric, well, now as the electric grid goes green, your furnace and water heater are relying on that instead of natural gas. The same thing's going to apply to these fleet vehicles. If you're getting off of gasoline, eventually off of diesel into more renewable options, even if that's electricity, the electric grid is going to go green faster than your unleaded gasoline does.
Good point.
But yeah, it would increase our electricity burden. So that's why we look at the whole package of electric plus gas plus fleet fuel to see where we are as for the whole portfolio.
Okay. Great. Any other questions for Phil on this agenda item? If not, let's go ahead and move on to 5B, the 2022 energy benchmarking and renewable analysis report.
I'm muted. I can do a screen share here. Here we go. So working on updating this from last year, there's a lot of narrative I'd like to add, and I've got a number of graphs and figures in here. Trying to think the best way to go through. I don't really want to go through page by page because I've got almost 30 of them, and I don't think we have the time to really go through in detail. But a little bit of this is just sort of a recap of what was just discussed. So here's kind of where we are. Those progress markers I just mentioned, the one I didn't was that our overall energy use is down 5% from 2018. Of course, this is due to a number of variables. We've got efficiency gains from more efficient equipment, from converting streetlights and some building lights to LEDs, passive building improvements that are more efficient. We've also had decreased occupancy due to the pandemic, and the city has some remote work that was not in existence before 2020. So some of the energy needs of the city have now just been sort of kind of pushed off onto other buildings, whether it's people's homes or if they're working in coffee shops, things like that. People are also driving less. If they're working remotely, they're not commuting into the office. So there's a lot of energy use outside the boundaries of the city now that are kind of tough to measure in there, but at least direct city energy use is down overall 5% from 2018. But this whole thing, I'm just kind of trying to go through and give the overall picture of where things are for the city over the last few years, especially in 2022. I expect, I guess a couple things. I did mention that we're missing some solar energy right now, and I'm hoping to get that data in over the next month or two. It'll be really exciting once we do. I also have not gotten our 2022 figures from Alliant Energy yet. So I've got a placeholder in there that's roughly the equivalent of what we purchased from them in 2021, but I don't have the exact figure for 22. That's still outstanding. So a couple of data points that are not in here yet, so we don't have the complete energy picture for 2022. So I want to get that completed, get some figures updated, and then just kind of build up the rest of the narrative. My goal is to have this completely ready by the May RCC meeting. I think I could have it ready by April, but we don't meet that month.
Did you send this to us, Phil?
I believe I did. Did anyone receive it?
Yeah, I got it this afternoon, yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
I sent it at about 3 o'clock, so it was pretty late. I was focused on the sustainability plan and a couple other things last week, so I didn't have enough of a draft ready in time to submit it with the packet.
Okay, oh, now I see it. Okay, thanks.
But yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything in particular anybody's curious about. I think just scrolling through is going to be a lot of visual turbulence and unnecessarily confusing. I guess in lieu of any questions, I can say the major trends over the last number of years. Energy usage stabilized and then decreased, as I mentioned. Renewables have gone up, of course, and a big part of that is this orange bar down here is bringing in the O'Brien solar farm. So getting that renewable energy rider from MG&E with the O'Brien solar was really important for increasing our renewable portfolio. Now this is just by source. This doesn't show renewable versus non. So a large portion of this yellow bar, which is the MG&E grid mix, about 23% of that last year, I believe, is from renewable sources. So our renewable chunk is larger than what it appears here. The navy blue is municipal solar, orange is O'Brien, and then part of yellow, which is MG&E, and green, which is Alliant grid mix. Portions of both of those are renewable as well. This is just kind of looking at kind of where our electricity is actually coming from.
So Phil, how would you see the 2023 bar looking?
Right now, I don't see any substantial changes on our end for 2023. We don't have any solar developments right now in the works. We'll continue making efficiency gains with, we're always pushing more parks and LED streetlights parks and streetlights to LEDs. We've had some LED replacements in City Hall in the last few months. So those are going to make small dents in our overall energy usage. Mm-hmm. But I think probably the biggest place we're looking for growth in our renewables this year is going to be MG&E and Alliant making their grids greener. MG&E's had a couple of major solar projects they've been developing over the last year. So if those, I guess those ones like Koshkonong may still not come online until 2024. That may be a little ways off still. I think 2023 is probably not going to be a major change from last year is my guess, and we'll see. But if I had to guess.
So I guess in future years, if you look down the road, mm-hmm. it's the yellow bar that's going to be decreasing over time then? The
yellow bar.
The yellow part of the bar, I should say.
So the yellow bar is the MG&E grid mix. That decreases if we so that means we've decreased our reliance on grid energy, and that would happen either because we've increased what we're generating on site. It also might mean that we've implemented battery storage. We probably sold about, I've got a figure in here. We sold, I think, 40% of our total solar back to MG&E last year, and that's just because of non-alignment between when solar energy is generated and when we actually are using it for our facilities. Mm-hmm. So if we had battery storage, then we would use a lot more of what we're generating, and then we're not purchasing from the grid as much. Another big one would be just if we make major efficiency improvements, then we're not buying as much from the grid. But I wouldn't actually anticipate the yellow bar decreasing tremendously. It's more just that the portion of the yellow bar that comes from renewables would increase. And
Right.
so let's look at it this way. Here's our annual energy usage by source.
Okay.
So brown here is the fossil fuel portion of the MG&E grid, and red is the renewable portion. And so you see from 15 to 22 how much that the red portion of the bar has grown in proportion to the brown.
Mhm.
So we have decreased our dependence on MG&E's grid, and that's because of our solar rooftop solar arrays. But then the amount of energy that we're buying from MG&E has become substantially more renewable by percentage. And so that's the trend that I'm looking to see increase in the coming years, is what we're still buying from MG&E, seeing that become more and more of the red bar here, the renewable grid.
Okay, that makes sense now.
And then just for a sense of how much we really are counting on, So there's something that I messed up here in the bar because I'm not seeing the O'Brien array, and I wonder if that's part of, if I got that mixed up in the red bar here. So as I say, the pink here, that sort of lightish red is the on-site solar.
Yeah.
So that's actually quite a bit less than just what we're getting from MG&E, the renewable portion of their grid, just because what we're producing with our rooftop arrays is about 9% last time I looked of our total electricity usage. So even though that's fully solar, those vowels were weird, even though it's fully solar, if we're buying 70% of our total usage from MG&E and 20% of that is renewable, that's 14% right there. Of our total usage that's coming from renewables. So MG&E is a major player in our push for renewables. This also gives a sense of, we talk so much about electricity because that's where all of our renewable energy is coming from. We also have natural gas still that we use for buildings, generally for HVAC purposes. We have gasoline and diesel purchases. That's the blue and the green here. And so that gives you a sense of how much energy we're using as a city that is not electricity. So when we're talking about pushing to renewable, electricity is mostly where that's coming from, unless we get to a point where we can convert some of our diesel vehicles to biodiesel, or some of the heavy duty vehicles to renewable natural gas that would be captured by Dane County from their landfill from off-gassing. This over here, what we're trying to do with the natural gas, the gasoline and diesel, is simply reduce that energy usage, either through more efficient vehicles or through, the natural gas shifting to electrification.
So is there a stated plan, especially for like building heating? To me, that's an area that could better align with when we're actually capturing the rooftop solar during the day. So is there a stated plan to kind of move as much as possible to like heat pumps and electric heat sources in the buildings?
There's not a stated plan right now. I know there were some recommendations back in about 2013 when when RCC worked with, I think Rick Eilertson was still around, the environmental engineer, on a greenhouse gas inventory and some recommendations associated with that. Those recommendations, honestly, I just turned up again in the last few months. They kind of fell by the wayside. They have not been, I would say, at the forefront of discussions. So we do have a series of recommendations from about a decade ago, but they're not necessarily driving decisions right now. That's something that we're hoping to get from the sustainability plan. But I wouldn't say that we have any sort of strategic initiative on how to handle energy usage. It's kind of handled on an ad hoc basis. It's something that anytime I'm talking with our facilities and buildings manager, Kevin and I are discussing this. Kevin certainly is aware of this, and his goal is to reduce our energy usage and make things more efficient. But it's not driven by any particular bulleted plan. No.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Phil.
Yep.
Very informative.
The one other thing I'll mention, just because Josh, I know you asked about this last year, and I finally pulled up some data on it. Looking at our energy costs per type. So this graph here is looking at the per unit, just comparison of, this doesn't this doesn't get into the whole amount that we're spending on energy, but here's how much we're spending per kilowatt hour of electricity, per therm of gas. You can kind of see the trend over the years, what's going on gasoline and diesel per gallon. Obviously a therm of gas compared to a gallon of gasoline or diesel, these are not one-to-ones, but it just gives you a sense of sort of the unit that we discussed. But all of these fuels saw a jump over the last couple of years. We're all aware of this, that fuel costs have been rising, but it's really remarkable with gas and diesel. What's happened here, we've gone from, with gas, $2 to $3.81 between 2020 and 22. With diesel, all of this, there was a huge crash in demand during the pandemic. And so the bottom kind of fell out of especially fuel prices, and those have rebounded with a vengeance. But if you look at, there's an earlier graph up here that shows our energy costs annually. And this looks a little bit disconcerting because it seems like, okay, our costs are going down, and all of a sudden we get into 21 and 22 and they start jumping up again. And the initial instinctive reaction is, why did we suddenly start using so much more gas and diesel in these 2 years, even natural gas? Why have these jumped up? And really the answer is
The cost per gallon, yeah.
what happened is the cost per gallon. So here the bar shows the number of gallons that we're actually purchasing, and they've increased slightly, but they've remained relatively steady.
Yeah.
The line graph is the price per gallon in gas and diesel, and you can see how much that jumps up.
Yeah, I was going to say this was one of the best charts, I feel like, that showed some of that inflation in some of the other areas. I think this one really drives that home.
And so this shows, this is about the fleet vehicles, but this also demonstrates the value of getting onto renewable. Once you've built solar panels, there's obviously operations and maintenance costs. We're experiencing that right now with these inverters and all the tech assistance that we're requiring. But the cost of the sun hitting the panel is always the same. So when you're talking about renewable energy, generally the cost is pretty stable. You don't deal with the same fluctuations, the same price volatility with renewable energy. And so that's what we're looking forward to with electricity. That's also the value in cutting down our usage of gasoline and diesel and natural gas as much as possible, is because of this volatility. The more of these fuels you're using, the more you're susceptible to price shocks. And that's something that's really, electricity has gone up, but stayed a lot more stable relative to, you look at what happens with natural gas, especially over the last couple of years. Same thing with gasoline and diesel, and they are both coming back down again. Hopefully we've seen the worst spike, but yeah, that's something that we're definitely experiencing. We budget a certain amount for our energy needs, and when things like this happen, we don't like to see that.
Gabriella, do we have any updated timeline on the electrified trucks for the city?
I haven't heard anything. The cars are both any type of car has just been an absolute nightmare to get a hold of.
I finally have a delivery date for mine that I ordered months and months ago, so that I figured that was going to be answered.
I could double check, but we're even having difficulty getting gas powered cars. So it's the electric cars are even harder. So I'll definitely let you know as soon as I know.
Are we going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony when we get our first EV?
Yeah.
We should.
We should. I will say the city of Madison's streets division somehow has a Ford Mach-E, which is what I have ordered. So they must have got that order in very early, is all I have to say.
Yeah, we should. That's a good idea because it'll be the first one.
Yep. All right, we are running about 9 minutes behind.
All right, we can get caught up. Are there any more questions for Phil? Thank you, Phil, for sharing all this information. All right, let's move on to agenda item 5C, discuss next steps for school cafeteria recycling program. Kim, you want to give us an update on that?
Sure. Just a brief update. Chris is gone, but just a couple things. We kicked off a milk carton recycling program at Emerson Elementary. Jessica Ah, who was the former vice principal at Leopold Elementary, where our pilot took place, had moved on to this new elementary school. So she was very excited and eager to get this program started. along with Sustain Dane. So that's exciting news. And Chris will have some more additional updates as it relates to that and other efforts within the schools. One of the things he did want me to mention was our outreach committee met and we kind of talked through the events that we had talked about at our last RCC meeting and kind of had narrowed it down to a couple of events that we were interested in doing. And Chris is going to send out an email about that. But we kind of talked through the bike tour of the stormwater facilities, food waste event, plastic bag recycling event. And I think for now, we're going to hold off on an event with the Boys and Girls Club and an apartment recycling until we get a few more people on the outreach committee, just because our bandwidth is, we just don't have a lot. And those are big events that we would need to put together, but we will be sending out an update on some of these suggested events for the RCC to have some input into. But one of the things that you probably saw in an email from Chris was the water quality outreach event that we went ahead and moved forward with getting scheduled at the Fitchburg Library for Thursday, March 16th. We are going, or Chris will be doing some outreach to Josh on this event and topic, and then also be starting to do some outreach with getting speakers lined up for this event. We're looking for it to start at 5:30 and probably run around an hour and a half. So we'll have more logistics and details as it relates to that event. But if you guys want to go ahead and get it on your calendars, we will update you with additional information.
That's
you
just
repeat
2
the
days from
date?
now, right?
I'm sorry, that the date is Thursday, March 16th.
Oh, okay. That was February 16th.
Oh, did I say, I may have said
No,
February.
you said March.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
No, but I read somewhere February 16th.
Oh, boy.
So I think
Okay.
that was in Chris's email, remember?
Oh, yeah, it probably was. So yeah,
Okay,
I pulled
that's why
up,
I say, wow.
the real email that has
Yeah.
the correct date. So,
Okay,
yeah. So I know that was something we had discussed at one of our previous RCC meetings.
okay.
So that is it for now. Does anyone have any questions?
Nope. I don't have any. Thanks, Kim.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, let's move on to item 5D on the agenda. Just probably do some catch up on some time here. I just wanted to remind folks briefly, we have a member handbook out there in 2019 manual. So if you ever, hopefully everyone has a copy of this. If you don't, you can get this from the city's website. You can go through it and look at the roles and responsibilities of each of the positions. And the reason I'm just pointing this out because some roles and positions may change in the future. My term ends in April, and I really don't want to go through the chair role in the future. So hopefully there's some folks out there that might be interested in taking on this role. So just to give you an idea of what it is. And also, over time, last month, Chris and Diane and I we had a meeting to talk about how we can help streamline some of the roles and responsibilities for the chair. And Diane put together this great schedule, at least for the agenda and meeting minutes of what can be done. And it really worked well for the February meeting for this month. So I think that's something that we'll be carrying forward. So just to let you know that these are out there. So this was worked on. So if anybody wants to take on the chair role in the future, that we have these things available out there for you to follow or as provide guidance. And I appreciate Diane in putting this together.
And just a note on that document, elsewhere in there, it states that we're meeting every third Monday of the month, and I think we're now to every second Monday. and it still has
Yeah,
the old individual's name for supervising. So I don't know if this one regular gets updated, but just
yeah, I'm not sure how often this gets updated, Ben.
Yeah, I can ask that question. I don't know who updates it either. That's a question that I've had in the past. That I don't know if it's the mayor or the city staff.
The prep time is way off also.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
I
it's
mean I don't
way
think
off.
it's been updated since 2019, so it's
It wasn't
Yeah,
even,
we'll-
it wasn't
we can
even
look into
accurate
that.
then.
I think for RCC, it's what, yeah, third Monday, a half hour to 1 hour, you know, per month. So we're spending 2.5 hours just a month on the meetings. So this does need to be updated.
and we are moving forward with second Monday of the month, right? That's our standing.
Yep.
we moved specifically so that we could weigh in on council resolutions that were coming. Otherwise, we are always missing the weigh-in before the vote happened at council.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
Are you going to circulate that schedule, Ron?
Yeah.
For
Yep, I'll
comment?
circulate it. Yep. Can I go
Okay.
ahead and finalize it? It said draft on there, so I'll make it a final.
Okay,
Yep. And thank you for doing that, Diane.
you're welcome.
All right, next item on the agenda, 5E, is a brief update on the action items from the January 9th RCC meeting. If you look at the meeting minutes, there were some action items that were assigned to different folks. First one was for me to follow up with Will and Sprocket on the possibility of an e-bike education event. So I followed up with Julian Matthew at Will and Sprocket. He's now the general manager there. And so they're very excited to work with us to do an e-bike event this summer in May or June. So I'm actually meeting with him tomorrow to go over a little more of the details and get some additional information, but they're excited to do it. So that's good. And so, Phil, it might be something where we could work jointly with the bike committee on this.
Yeah, I think they would have interest. The next one was mine, talking with bike committee about interest in a joint bike tour event. Whether formally with the bike committee as a joint thing or just some individual members of the bike committee, I think they'd have interest in helping to plan and lead out a bike tour. They're always excited for an excuse to encourage more people to get out on the trails. So if that's something that RCC wants to do for an event this year, there would be interest among bike committee members in partnering up on that.
Okay. And I think we had some other items that we talked about for an annual event. Kim, do you know if Kristen, you've worked on any of those items or?
Yeah, so I know that we were waiting, I think, to hear on the electric bike event. I think we had talked about the interest of working to do this bike tour of the stormwater facilities was something we had talked about. We decided that we wanted to hold off on the Bat and Birdhouse event. I know Diane had mentioned, I think at the last meeting, that I think Tri-North or someone else does an event like that. And we felt like there were other events that made more sense at this point. So we kind of wanted to take that one off the list. And then, yeah, we were kind of tossing around the food waste event. I definitely want us to do the plastic bag recycling event at one of the stores. So I'm tasked with, I'm going to be reaching out to Pick and Save to see if that's something we can get scheduled this year as well. So those were kind of some of the events that we had kind of talked about.
Okay. So at some point we have to make a decision on what the annual event's going to be and when it's going to be and where at. So. I mean, right now there is the e-bike event. So it looks like that could be a potentially good annual event for us if we work jointly with the bike committee. So. Yeah. If that seems like something reasonable to pursue, I can work with you, Kim and Chris, to help make that happen
Okay.
and try to find the appropriate date for it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can follow up with Chris and on that one and kind of go from there.
Okay. And it might be something possible that, we could get some free giveaways from Lil and Sprocket as well. So,
Yeah, sounds great.
yeah. Okay, try to get back on track here. Let's move up to the council update.
But wait, there's another action item on January and that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Diane.
That's okay.
No, I
All
forgot.
of my work.
Yeah, no.
Ben sent me some draft language or the ordinance, and I sent back some suggestions to reduce salt usage. Somewhat similar to what Madison just passed. We tweaked it a little bit, and I think Ben was going to check with some other departments and see. So maybe we can bring that forward for March, Ben, because after I realized that there was a snow/ice last week and still a lot of ice on the sidewalks, but there's rock salt all over the place in my neighborhood. So I really want to see this moving forward. I can't hear you.
And just a quick update for, we talked a little bit about, having this ordinance be for parking lots as well. And we're kind of, I think I was talking with Diane, where would that fit in? It doesn't really fit in with the residential sidewalk snow and ice removal, or just sidewalk snow and ice removal section of the ordinance. I did talk with some folks at the DNR in Dane County just to get their thoughts of, modifying the illicit discharge ordinance. That didn't really go so well. I think, that's not maybe the intent of it. And, I think they want really to kind of have a consistent illicit discharge ordinance throughout the county. So, again, maybe it's something I think what Diane provided was excellent for the sidewalks. So you could maybe just get that put forward and address the parking lots later, or we can keep looking at if that would be palatable.
Well, maybe we do the sidewalks now, and parking lot owners will get the message, or and maybe we could address parking lots under stormwater.
Yeah, I think we could probably fit it in somewhere, and really make the focus more on education versus penalizing people. I think that'll help kind of get it passed. There's a lot of good information. Minnesota, there's a department, one of their state departments drafted some language for municipal ordinances. And I think there's actually some counties there that basically, have a registration for these companies that provide the snow and ice removal, and they actually have to be certified or have a certain type of certification to work in that municipality or that county. And I think that's maybe the way to go forward, but you really need to kind of have buy-in from a whole county. So maybe that's years and years down the road, but I just, I thought that was interesting and would probably be a more effective way to kind of curb some of these issues. So just wanted to throw that out there as something I thought was kind of interesting as well.
So what's the next step, Ben, as far as the sidewalks?
Well, I think finalize the sidewalk piece and get a resolution drafted up, and then continue to work on the parking lot piece.
Sounds good. Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Diane. Okay, now we can move on. All right, Gabrielle, you want to give us an update on anything from the council?
The only update was going to be the ARPA TID plan, which we already talked about. So we can, unless anyone has any questions, we can just go ahead and skip on to the next agenda item.
Oh, okay, good. Gets us back on schedule. Exactly.
All right. So solid waste here. A couple things go on. Mark Hodel and I met with Jason Fuller with Carbon Cycle Consulting. So they're a company that works at a couple different municipalities. Mark actually met this individual at a Stoughton swap meet. And Stoughton, I guess, has had a lot of success with their compost operation. So we met with them. They kind of provided some recommendations as far as operation of the compost site. And we're looking at a partnership basically where they would come in and do the compost turning, because that's kind of an activity that takes quite a bit of staff time. So they would take care of doing the turning of the compost as needed, and then they would provide equipment to complete screening of the compost. So that, right now our compost at the city is a little bit twiggy and branchy, if you've ever noticed. So having that screen compost will be really nice. And then they take X percent, 50% of the compost, and then the city would have the rest to do with what it does. So really looking at starting that partnership. It would save a lot of staff time, and I think it would provide residents with a better quality compost in the end. So that's one update. Also, maybe you got in the mail calendar, the recycling calendar today. Refuse, no one did.
Our mail hasn't. It wasn't here the last time I checked.
Yeah,
All right. Okay. Well, if you guys don't get something this week, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with Minutemen Press, because
Thanks for getting that out, Ben.
So that you should be receiving something. It's just a calendar, and then just like a one sheet, basically kind of, simplified guide, stripped down version of the recycling guide. Try doing some front and back printing, but it's not the paper where they get you, it's the ink. So you don't really actually save that much money doing the front and back printing, which I found. So what else? Oh, and then just kind of working on the annual recycling grant report. So for that report we receive, or for that grant that we receive annually from the state, there's just kind of a summary report. So kind of working through that as well.
Diane, you had something on the recycling bins or the facility?
Pardon me? You
had something an email on the recycling, update on the recycling facility, or?
Do you, on the cardboard?
Yeah, cardboard.
Has that situation changed?
I guess apparently winter is not the best time, or this isn't the best time to gauge it. Mark has said that there's just generally kind of less activity in the winter there. So we've done a couple things. They're going to be changing the name. So Mark had mentioned that a lot of people come in and they don't realize that it's for Fitchburg residents only until after they're already there and they see all the signs, if they're just looking at it on their phone. So we'll see, but we're going to have Google change it to Fitchburg Resident Recycling Drop-Off Center when you search for it. So maybe that'll make a difference, so people won't drive out there just thinking it's some kind of a free-for-all recycling drop-off site. I don't know, but doesn't hurt. So we're going to continue to kind of monitor that once things pick up in the spring. Yeah, I guess that's the update for now.
Good. I one other question I had. I saw a Madison truck going through the Seminole neighborhood. It was a brush pickup truck. Did we outsource some of our brush pickup? Our Christmas tree
No.
pickup? No?
Christmas tree?
No, that's odd.
Yeah, I
I
thought
don't
it
know
was.
why that would be.
Maybe they were taking a shortcut to get some lunch or something.
I guess I could say the streets department picked up 900 some Christmas trees, holiday trees. And I think for the holiday lights collection, I'll add that 600 some pounds of holiday lights. was
Oh, that
collected.
reminds me, do we have our annual report finalized and our calendar finalized?
So yeah, I can send that out to the group after.
Okay. Been busy.
Okay, stormwater.
So we got some of the studies going on. I think I kind of mentioned the Seminole Glen and the Dunn's Marsh or north of Dunn's Marsh flooding study. So those two are both getting into the modeling of alternative solutions. So we'll have some more updates within the next month on those two projects. TMDL project is also kind of getting to the point where we're starting to add in all of the BMPs in the city, both public and private, into the water quality model. Got proposals back for the 23 to 25 vegetation management program for the stormwater utility facilities. So we will have a consultant or a contractor chosen probably tomorrow. We've also got a dredging bid documents for some dredging projects out. I think we're going to try to do 6 stormwater ponds in 2023. So we'll get bids back on that. I think in a couple weeks at the end of February, and we'll see how far we'll see how those prices come in. I'm hopeful we can maybe get a little bit of some extra work done. We've included some alternates in the bid package, so we'll see. And then just some kind of administrative stuff, updating plant value for work completed in 2022, and then working on the annual MS4 report.
What does that mean, plant value?
That basically is just referring to all the assets, so pipe, so at the end of every year, each department, so like utilities being water and sanitary, and then me for stormwater, and then our transportation engineer, they'll go back and they'll look at all of the different assets that were installed. So pipe, valves, asphalt, curb and gutter, any kind of infrastructure, and then just basically quantifying how much, putting a cost to it, and then basically, that's
I thought you were talking about like green plants, like things that you native plants.
No.
Okay.
Not as exciting.
Ben, do we do any prairie burns at our stormwater facilities? I can't remember.
Yeah, so there'll be burns included in this vegetation management contract. Okay. Probably going to try to do 5 to 6 a year for the stormwater facilities. Okay. Mostly kind of prioritizing infiltration and bioretention facilities. But yeah, that's the plan.
Okay. Great, thank you. Phil, any updates on sustainability other than what you provided to us already?
It is reporting season, so the Green Tiered Legacy Communities Report is coming up. Been talking for I think 2 years now about updating that report and score sheet, and we finally actually have it ready to go. Because it's a new complicated process, they're still working on getting the online score sheet tool up and running so we don't have to just fill it out in an Excel spreadsheet and email it over. They are extending the normal deadline, which would be either March or April 1st, and June 1st is when they're looking for the GTLC report to be submitted. So I could start working on that soon, but with some other stuff going on, I'm going to put that on the back burner and probably start working on it in March or April. So again, probably at the May meeting, I'll have a draft Green Tier Legacy Communities report to share with RCC a little bit later than normally would be the case. The other one, just because we've been talking about bike things, and RCC is always interested in decreasing energy, which means alternate transit. The B-Cycle program that we've been working on, Fitchburg staff and Bike Fitchburg, members of the bike committee, the Fitchburg chamber, working on bringing B-Cycle electric bike share system to Fitchburg. We are looking to kick off the phase 1 implementation of that next month in March, as soon as B-Cycle is ready to start putting bikes out. We got 6 locations. We're trying to get a 7th for our phase 1 that are going to have docks ready to go in March. The most exciting one for the city there, I think, is that McKee Farms Park is sort of going to be the central hub of this initial kickoff. Once the weather gets warmer and we can count on it being good biking weather and good have a camera and microphone out there weather, we're going to do a little bit more of a formal kickoff event. We're probably not going to schedule that for March 15th, but look for some announcements on when there will be a little bit more of a ribbon cutting or bike chain cutting ceremony for that. And then once we've got phase 1 up and running, we get to start planning the phase 2 expansion that's going to be funded 80% through the Transportation Alternatives Program grant that we got from the Wisconsin DOT last year. So that's really exciting. We're getting some e-bikes into Fitchburg real soon.
Yeah, that's great. Phil, are there any grants that you're working on that'll be coming up, or?
Nope.
Nope, nothing.
Nope, I'm going to be totally focused on the sustainability plan and the 2 bike grants that are already in hand, and making sure that I can keep up with tracking and reporting on those. Yeah, the whole. I was hoping that the heaviest lift for the grant was done once I submitted the applications. That's not the case, turns out.
That's the reporting, yes.
yeah, the reporting is another thing entirely. No, there's nothing else on the horizon right now.
Okay.
I know that Public Works, just because it's bicycling related, and I get notifications on that, Public Works is applying for a TAP grant. There is a bike, a multi-use path that goes up the east side of Rimrock Road, County Highway MM from Terra Vesa. And then the Cap City Trail crosses MM at McCoy Road. And right now there is a separate bike, kind of a sort of protected bike lane along Rimrock going south there. Mm-hmm. Down the road, we want to get an off-street bike path, I believe, on the west side of Highway MM. While that's coming down the west side, the trail from Terra Vesa is coming up the east side. So somewhere in between there, we're looking to build an underpass for bicyclists and pedestrians. And so we're applying for a TAP grant to try and help fund that. So if we get that'd be really exciting.
Yeah.
Nothing else I'm working on though.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, something's, I guess, not related to anything that you just said, but one of my questions is, are we going to be able to recycle batteries at the upcoming shred event?
We're not. No, and thanks for that. I should have had an update on that too. So we've got the shred event coming up in April. We'll have more details in March and ask for volunteers and all that. Our normal contact with Resource Solutions is no longer with the company. So I met with, things should still be a pretty smooth transition. I met with their president 2 weeks ago. And she's on top of things. She was present in the fall, so she knows how this event runs, and she'll be very present. But I talked with her about the batteries, and the issue is just that it's one thing if you're handling 5 or 10 or 15 batteries, but when you're doing an event where they've got maybe 100 cars coming through, and people might have, like, some people will bring a bucket of old batteries. It's just such a large quantity, and they can't count on enough people to actually package them properly. So especially if they are lithium batteries, they really need to be packaged in such a way that they're not going to come into contact with each other and generate heat that can create a fire hazard. And so some of it is the cost of and just the general chemical hazard of dealing with that many batteries, but also that when you're potentially collecting hundreds of pounds of lithium batteries from residents, there's just not a good way for them to monitor it and to really ensure that everybody's bringing them in and handling them properly. So what we can do is we can give people information on where they can go to recycle batteries, and that I'd have to look up the list. I don't have it memorized. I know batteries and bulbs because it's in the name, but there are locations around that residents can go to recycle their household batteries until there's a change in just how these things are manufactured or how recycling happens and sort of handling and storage. They're not going to be able to bring that back to this event anytime soon.
Well, I had talked with Laura, is that her name, is the new contact? Well, regardless, you know, I was told basically more or less words that it's just not going to happen. I threw out there we could provide someone, you know, basically just standing there all day,
just taping up batteries,
doing whatever they need to, you know, to make it work. But yeah, that was shut down pretty hard.
I will say, so I just took a bag that I've been collecting for a long time over to batteries and bulbs. It was all alkalines. Gentleman at the counter who said he'd be happy to charge me by pound to ship them to China, where he has no idea what happens to them, told me, and I confirmed it on the EPA's website, that those, because they don't have mercury in them anymore, are actually recommended to just be disposed of in the trash by the EPA. Yep. And so it does sound like all we would be really eligible to collect by citizens at this point is anything rechargeable, which is going to be a lot of lithium ion stuff. Can't imagine there's actually going to be that large of a scale. And so I would push back on this a little bit and say that I don't think we're going to have a lot of people walking in with 100 pounds worth of lithium ion batteries that are that old. And that if we had somebody dedicated to tape them and wrap them in fire retardant material, do you think we could get them to the point that they could be collecting these? And so I just want to talk about scale and true expectations on this, because I think the stuff we could truly recycle wouldn't actually be that extensive.
You're right about that. That's the recommendation now, is that alkaline batteries just be thrown away. You're a pretty aware and keeping up with things guy, and you had to be told that at Batteries Plus. I would imagine most residents are not going to know about this, so we can, I guess, put it in the advertisements just as kind of a wrinkle in there that I think we could say rechargeable batteries only, and you still may get people bringing buckets and buckets of alkalines. I don't know. We can certainly try to push back with Laura and see. It sounded like her mind is pretty well made up, but yeah, we can try it one more time.
Why don't instead, when we put the information on the website or wherever we put it, I think that we should make it clear that we're not accepting batteries, because in the past we have, and then include a link to places that will recycle batteries. And maybe also the fact that alkaline batteries don't need to be recycled; they can be put in the trash.
I think we published that too.
I was gonna say that having some information that we can provide people, because when I would be greeting people as they're driving in, that is one of the top questions that I get asked all the time. You know, are you accepting batteries? What can I do with my batteries? And so on that form that we had, you know, we had a list of places and a website. And so I would, you know, provide that to them. So I think that makes a lot of sense to keep doing that.
And we definitely have advertised in the past couple events that we're not accepting batteries. I can look when I'm building the advertisements for this year and see if it needs to be more prominent. I don't think we've mentioned alkaline batteries, so we'll see if there's space to include that as well.
People still bring them. I talked to some people last year that brought them.
I think that would be a huge amount of our people. I think if we flat out said alkaline batteries can be disposed of, you can dispose, you know, you can recycle rechargeable batteries at these locations. I think that would cut down a lot on at least people bringing them thinking we're going to have a solution.
Sure.
Yeah. All good points. All right, well, thanks, Phil. Just 5 more minutes left, okay. Last thing on the agenda, 7D, activities being conducted or monitored by commissioners. Diane, you already covered 2 things I was gonna talk about or mention, was just the RCC calendar and the annual report. So it sounds like Ben's taking care of that. I did see your edits and changes to those 2 documents. So Ben, you'll have that out for us shortly.
Yep, I'll get that circulated.
And then the other thing, Diane, is any update on the Star Fitchburg articles? I saw Chris's article, earlier this week or last week, and the Fitchburg Star was really good. So I don't know who's next on the agenda, or
I can't remember who is next. Does the next person remember? I just shut down my other computer, so I can't check it out, but I'll send out an email about who's next. Sorry, I dropped the ball on that. Somebody's next.
That's okay. We just need to start planning long-term for the summer as well, so.
Yep, I'll send out an email to everybody tomorrow. Well, sometime this week about the person that's next. And remember, April, we're not doing an article.
Right.
Wait, no. Stop.
March, is right.
March, we're not doing an
election.
article. So the next article will be April. So whoever's next has a little bit of time.
I think that might be me then. I think I'm in April. I think I'm doing, how to get involved as a citizen or opportunities for involvement from a sustainability perspective.
Perfect.
Great.
Good.
Okay, anything else that any of the commissioners would like to talk or discuss? If not, we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:57.
Nice job keeping us on time.
Yeah,
Josh.
thanks, Josh.
There's a lot of hard work,
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
All right, good night.
Thank y'all.